Good morning, and thank you for joining us for our Connect Client training. My name is Tom Lyons, and I am with Inflow Communications. Today, we are going to go over the Connect Client as a general overview and talk about the ways that you can manipulate calls, set up and add to your contacts lists, set up any integrations that you have with Outlook for your calendars, and all the other features of the Connect Client. My name is Thomas Lyons. I am a senior support engineer and also a subject matter expert over at Inflow Communications. I've been doing this for about 5 years now. My 5-year anniversary is actually coming up at the end of the month. And I have a broad wealth of knowledge on the unified communications platforms that we support at Inflow. A little bit about Inflow Communications before we get started. We do have a sole focus on unified communications and contact center solutions. Voice is what we do. We are a one-stop shop for voice. We are a Mitel Platinum partner, as well as partnered with RingCentral and Genesys PureCloud. We have offices and employees in 10 states and currently support 180,000 endpoints and over 800 customers nationwide and actually worldwide. And we are maniacal about our customer experience. We want to make sure that we can get everything that you guys need done for you as quickly and efficiently as possible, and that's why we're here. Here's a broad snippet of some of the customers that we support as well. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into the overview for the Connect client here. So in just a second here, you'll see the Connect client popped up on my screen. There we go. So this is the Connect client. The Connect client is going to be what you use to interface with your ShoreTel system, either by controlling your phone or in some cases controlling the soft phone client that is built into the Connect client and using your computer for audio. This takes place of the ShoreTel communicator client that was used in previous versions of ShoreTel. And there are a few differences in how things work, although the two clients do operate on a very similar level. So we're going to go over how to do what in the client today. This is going to be an overview. So I'm going to go through just about all of the features on the client. And then at the end, we're going to open it up for about 5 to 10 minutes of questions as well. So to go ahead and get started here, this is how the client looks when you boot it up. You're going to have on the left-hand side a button for a dial pad, which is right here. The name or number field, which you may remember if you were on a previous version of ShoreTel, this is going to be the same thing as that field. You can dial a number in here or type a name if the system has a contact for the name in question, and use that to actually handle calls and make and receive calls that way. Under that is going to be your actual user profile. And clicking on that, you can see that I've got my name here, I've got my direct number, and I've also got my extension here, as well as my phone assignment, which we'll get into. And then just down the left-hand side, these options here are going to take the place of the tabs that were in the communicator client. So you have options here for your contacts, your recent calls, any voicemails. Messages is broken out as well now into its own instant messaging platform. Then you also have events, which is actually for calendar integration, and then work groups. If you are a part of a work group, you would see that as well, which would tell you that you have the ability to actually look at worker voicemails. So to go through this guy here and show you a little bit of the basic call flow manipulation, I'm going to actually go ahead and call a number here and let this guy ring. And go ahead and pick it up on this side and mute it. So you can see here by typing into the name or number field, the system was able to make the call. And you can see it even knows, because I have a contact set up on my side, that it's my cell phone. So it was able to actually grab from the number that I dialed in that it belongs to a contact and was able to display that information for me. You'll notice that there are two different spots here where you see the call. Under calls on the left side, you'll see that I have an active call with my cell here. And then you will also see on the center pane that the call is listed here and has a ticker for how long it's been on, and there's a few buttons. This is where you can actually manipulate the call here. So you have a couple options with a call on the line. The first one, which I actually just did to make sure there was no reverb on my microphone, is actually muted my mic. This is going to do the same on the client that it would do if you have a physical phone and press the mute button there. And it will illuminate if you are muted, and it will be normal if you aren't muted. So right now I'm going to keep myself muted just to make sure you guys don't hear me echoing through my cell phone. You also do have a few other options though in the client. If it were a client-to-client call, you could start a video conference, which is shown here, assuming that you do use that in your environment. But the ones that you're going to see most often are going to be these three buttons. I'm going to start with this button here. You can see from the tooltip when I hover over it, it does say that it is for starting recording. This is going to be dependent on if your organization allows you to record calls, but you do have the ability to record straight from the client here. If you are unsure if you can record calls, I would speak with your system administrator to see if they allow that. The other two are going to be much more frequently used, and this is for conferencing, or in this case, the client calls it add participant, and the button next to it is for transferring. And both of these work in much the same way. So if I click on this add participant, a little box under it is going to pop up that says type a name or extension. This works exactly the same way as the name or number field. So if I wanted to, for example, conference in Chris, I could type Chris here. I could select the correct Chris. And you'll see that there's a box with his extension number here that's also listed in here. And now I have three different options. I can conference, which is just going to call him and add him to the conference if he picks up. I can consult, which is going to place my call on hold, call him and see if he can enter the conference. And then intercom is going to actually place my call on hold and intercom directly to his phone and see if he's available. So you do have those options directly from the client here. You can also conference or transfer to an external number. So if I wanted to conference or consult with this number, this 971-266-4382, if I type that number into the field here, I also have the options to do that. Note that intercom is not an option simply because this is not a phone on the ShoreTel system. It is an external number, but you can transfer a conference with external numbers through the phone here, or through the client rather. A couple other things that you can see directly through the call manipulation. If there's any additional info from the phone call, such as how it got to you, you would see the information here if you click this info button. In this case, I made the call, so it's only showing that I called out to that number. And then as well, you also have the ability up here to hang up the call, which is the red phone, and the pause is to put the call on hold. If I were to put the call on hold, you'll see that the timer changes to on hold, and it starts counting up from when the call was placed on hold so that you know when this occurred. So this will allow you to actually know how long somebody's been on hold. And then from there, you can, if I press the green phone button, I'm able to come right back, and you'll see that it has kept the timer from when the call started so that we can see that here. If I wanted to make another call, which I'll do here, to the same number. I'm just going to wait for this guy to let me pick up as well. There we go. You will see that I have two different calls active down in the bottom left here. And there's a new button that is available here, which is this little double arrow that goes into a single arrow, which is called merge. If I do that here, because it is my cell phone in both cases, it will break and disconnect. But if this was two separate calls, hitting this merge button would allow me to actually merge the two calls together and enter a three-way conference between the participants. So this is one way that you can merge calls as well. If I need to go back and forth between these calls, the calls down in this area function just like a line button on your physical phone. So I would be able to go ahead and just click on my cell and click on the green button here. and you'll see that that has changed. Now, the call that was on hold is active, and the call that was active up above is showing on hold. If I want to change again, just hit the green phone button on the on hold call, and that brings that one back. So that's how you can manipulate the calls in the Connect client. So you can do basically everything you could do with the phone directly through the client fairly easily. Other options that you may use, if you click on this little arrow next to the hang up button, there's an option to send a call directly to voicemail. So if I do that here, that call is now in my voicemail, and pull this guy up here. If I clicked on auto attendant, then that call would go to the default auto attendant in the system. This is probably not something you'll typically use, but the option is there. So I'm going to go ahead and hang up this call now, because that handles the call manipulation. And what we're going to do now for the rest of the time is I'm going to go ahead and go down the rest of the options here on the left side and go over some of the configuration settings that you can change as well. The one that is most often going to be used is going to be the contacts tab. This is going to be where your buddy list was in ShoreTel Communicator if you used that previously. But this is going to be where you can set up a quick list of contacts that you'll be able to monitor, see if they're on the phone, and be able to really get in touch with them in a moment's notice. You can almost think of this as like a speed dial and monitor section, or like a monitor extension button if you use any of those on your ShoreTel phones. So here you can see that I've got a bunch of different contacts that are already built into my system here. You can see even their statuses. So like Chris, Kayla, and Heidi are available. Seth is apparently asleep. I should probably call him after this meeting. But you can see your availability states. It will tell you if they're on the phone, and depending on your organization's settings, will also tell you who they're on the phone with. So you can see all of this at a moment's notice. If you want to add somebody that's in your system to the favorites tab, the easiest way is to click on name or number again. And then if I typed in Chelsea, for example, and you can see Chelsea's already in my favorites list here. But if I highlight over her extension, you'll see there's a little star. And in this case, her star is illuminated because she's part of my contacts list. If you click on that star, so for example, if I went to the one above it and clicked on that star, they are now a part of your favorites list. So going back to the contacts tab, you can see that the external cell for Chelsea, which is what I added, is now available in there. And if I uncheck, or if I unstar her, then she is gone. So you can manipulate it in that way easily. And then you can also create your own groups by clicking this plus. Or I'm sorry. You can do it from clicking on the groups tab and then clicking on the plus. You can create your own groups. If you do that, let's name it sales. And then we are going to enter. We'll put Mike in there. So you can see this is broken out as well. So if you want to set up a customized list, you can use the add group to create lists for the departments in your organization, and you can add the correct people there so you can see it easier. If you prefer to just use the one group though, you can still search by name or extension just like you can just about anywhere else in the client. So if I wanted to find Brad and I just type Brad, his extension will pop up here. Same if I actually just type in the extension. I know Brad's extension is 3810. If I punch that into the system also knows by extension that this belongs to Brad, so it'll pop up Brad's name as well. And then one other thing you can do as well is if you have a contact that is outside the organization, you can click on Add Contact. And this is going to pop up a box here. Where you would be able to type, set up the contact that you want to build. And then we can add that contact here. And now that contact is actually in the system in your contact list. So now I can see Fred Mann, who I just created. And if I star him, you can see that Fred is actually showing up in my buddy list now as well. So you can use this for external contacts that you call a lot as well. You can just create the contact so it's easier to find them, or you can even create them and put them into a group so that you would be able to call them very quickly. You won't be able to see their call status, obviously, because they're not part of the ShoreTel system, but you can definitely do that. We also have the Recents tab. The Recents tab in prior versions used to encompass a little bit more than it does now. They've broken out a few of the functions in the client so that the work groups, the work group messages and IM is its own separate box on the side now, and not all in Recent at the same time. But in Recent, you can see all of the calls that you made or received. So in this case, you can see quite a few. It will retain up to 100 calls, and the way that they work is it's made, received, or missed. So you can see here on here, for example, this call out to my cell, the arrow pointing up and out, that's me calling my cell phone. This red arrow that bounces off is a call that missed. And then an arrow pointing down and in is the call that came in to you that you received. So you can see all of these here very easily. If I were to click on a call, it's going to give you information on when they called, and so the time and date, so you can see that here, even if they didn't leave a message, and you can call somebody back very quickly. So you have that option. And you also have the ability from here to look for just missed calls. So if you have 5 missed calls, you get back to your desk, no voicemail, you can just filter by missed, see who called you. And you can also search. So if you were looking for somebody that called you specifically, like you're waiting for a specific call, you can look to see if they have called you as well, and that will search your call history. Under that is the voicemails tab. And this works very similar to the way that it used to work in ShoreTel Communicator, but going through that here, you have a few tabs up at the top. You have all, so that's going to be all of your voicemails. Unheard, so any voicemails that haven't been listened to yet, which you can see are illuminated in bold. And then any saved voicemails, which is going to be anything that I tell the system I don't want to have purged or deleted. From here, if I click into a voicemail, you can play the voicemail from here, and you'll have a couple options over to the right. You can actually change the speakers so that it will go through your PC headset, which is what I'm doing now, or if I click on the phone, it would go to my desk phone. I don't currently have a desk phone assigned, so I don't have that option. And then you can forward those voicemails if you want to. If I click on forward, that's going to bring up a contact that I can bring this to internally, and that's going to forward that using the voicemail system. So they'll just get a voicemail on their extension showing that they have a new voicemail. From there, you could record a preface if you want to the voicemail that you're going to send, which is what these buttons down here are for. And you can also mark it as urgent. You can mark it as private, which means they can't forward it to anybody else, or you can even request a receipt so you know when somebody has listened to the voicemail you forwarded. You can also save it here, which will allow you to keep that voicemail even if there's any purge filters set up in your system so that voicemails after a certain period of time are not able to be used, or are going to be purged rather. So like after 7 days, they might delete any heard messages. You can save a message in case you need it. And then you can, of course, delete it here too, which I'm going to do here. Unheard is just going to show the ones that are not heard yet, and then saved is going to show the ones that are saved. As far as that goes, that's pretty much what you can do with the voicemail system now in the actual client. If you do delete a voicemail that you need back, it does give you a deleted voicemails tab here now. And you'll see that the one that I deleted is here. If I click on it, I have the ability to restore it too. So if you delete one on accident, you can restore the voicemail from here and it will go back into your inbox. And then to jump into these as well before we jump into the settings real fast here. Messages, if you guys use the internal Mitel messaging system on the SA100, this is where any instant messaging would pop up. this is going to pop up chat boxes from anybody that sends you messaging within the system. We don't currently have this turned on. So I don't have any chat showing here, but it's going to show up like any other instant messaging chat box. It's gonna pop up with a message, and you'll be able to type in and respond just like anything else. Like if you were using, I know this is antiquated, but AOL Instant Messenger is the first thing that I thought of. Below that is an events tab. This is going to be probably inconsequential for a lot of folks here. And in my case, we no longer use the suite of products that actually integrates with the client, but this is for Outlook integration with your calendar. You can set up that integration so that it will show upcoming meetings and events in the events tab for you, so you can make sure that you're never going to miss a meeting. And then finally, there's also a workgroup tab here, and this is going to be specific for voicemails if you're not licensed to do workgroup related activities such as logging in and logging out. It's going to show any voicemails that are left in a workgroup box, which you can see here. This is our on-call support group. So these are voicemails that have been left after hours that we've responded to. And you can see I have access to all of those here, just like I would for my personal voicemail. It is broken out like this to make sure that you know the difference between the personal mailbox and the workgroup mailbox. So you do have that as well. If you were part of a work group that you have the ability to log in and log out of, you would be able to log in and log out from here as well. Now, real quick to go over a couple quick settings, and then we'll get into questions here. So let me pull this guy over here. To get into the settings, on the client, what you do is you actually click on the Connect drop-down here, and you click on Settings, which will pop up this page. And this is going to show you a few options that you can change for your call routing, your voicemail. And what I wanted to go over in this real quick as a overview was how to actually make sure that your call routing is set up correctly. So by clicking on the call routing tab, you'll see that there are two options. There's availability routing and power routing. We're going to focus on availability routing today because that's going to be where the majority of you guys will be looking at this. This is going to allow you to make sure that your calls are going to the right destination based on your call state in the client. So you can see here, if I click on this dropdown for when available, you can see we have all of the call states on the ShoreTel side, which are available, in a meeting, out of office, do not disturb, vacation, and custom. On the client itself, if you click this little dropdown under your name, that's how you can change those different availability states. And you can see based on this, I'm currently available. Calls are routed to my soft phone, which is what I use. And it will also simultaneously ring my cell phone. And you can also change the number of rings before calls are routed to voicemail. And it will even tell you if you have a voicemail greeting recorded or if you're using the default. For most of you, what you're going to be wanting to look at is your voicemail greeting. If you ever need to change that, you can just click on the change button here, which is going to pop up the ability to play and record so that you can change that very easily. And then any other options that you guys may need to change here would be if you need to have any other phones ring, which can be changed in the Simultaneous Ring, which is the second from the top. So you can see I have it set up for a new number, for my cell phone number, for 6 rings here. And if I click on this dropdown, you can actually add a phone. You can add what it is. You can add the number. And then below it, you can tell it to either automatically connect when somebody picks up, or you can press 1 to connect, which we recommend because that stops the cell phone voicemail from picking up the call. And then you can change the number of rings there as well. I don't want to make any changes to mine, so I'm not going to. And then as well, you can, just going down the line here, you can see I've got options. You can set up a Find Me, which is more of an advanced backend feature. You can see if your voicemail greeting is recorded, if callers are allowed to leave a voicemail, which is going to be on by default if you have a voicemail box. And then also you have a press 0 option during your voicemail greeting that's built in by default. You'll see that it's already set to forward to the auto attendant. If you wanted to change that and say something in your greeting like, to get to Karen, please press 0, you can actually change your press 0 option right here in the forward calls too. So if I wanted Chris Mitchell to pick up any calls that people press 0 on my voicemail for, I could add him here. And then as far as anything else in here, you shouldn't need to mess with anything too much. The only other one that could potentially is if you want voicemail email notifications, which is going to be under the notifications option here, where there are a couple of boxes here. The one that's important is send email notification about incoming voicemail, and you'll see that it's got my email attached there. And then you have a couple options as well. You can either get a message saying that the voicemail is that there's a voicemail waiting, or you can have it actually send the voicemail to you in a wave attachment so that you can actually listen to the voicemail anywhere. And then the bottom box will mark the message as heard if you do get a reminder or notification in this way. So you can set it so that the system isn't going to constantly think that you have new voicemails even though you've gotten them through your email. And that, in a nutshell, is how the Connect client works. So it's a little bit different from previous iterations, but it's got all the same functionality. It just looks a little bit different. It's got a little bit more going on graphically. Other than that, it's basically the same interface that it was before, fairly intuitive and easy to use. At this point, we've got a few minutes left. I'm going to go over a couple questions that I see in the chat boxes here. So let's see. What is the maximum number of calls that can be in a conference? So this particular question does depend on the configuration of your system. By default, the maximum parties that you can just add to a call at any one time is going to be 3. That's going to be you and up to 2 other callers. The system can be configured to set up what we call make me conferences for up to 6 people. That does require the configuration of additional resources in the back end of the system. So if this is something that you are wanting to look at, what you would want to do is send in a ticket to our support, and we can work with your system administrators to make sure that we can get those resources in play or point them in the right direction, be able to obtain those resources. If you need more than that, then the best option would be to use a conferencing solution, such as the Mitel SA100, which can be used for audio and web conferencing, or another provider. Does recent only hold 100 calls, and can they access older calls? So the recent tab in your call history is going to show your last 100 calls, whether they're missed, received, or sent. And that is what the history is going to show. As far as can other calls be seen, and for personal calls from your history, not in this way. There are options on the back end to pull up call detail records for calls, and you can do it based on the agent. So if it's for a reporting purpose or trying to find something, and it's not in your last 100 calls, it may be something your system administrator may be able to pull up using the CDR reporting that's built into the system. Let's see. Is there an option to set up an audio conference in the client as currently in Communicator using the SA100 conference bridge? So yes, there is. You can create a new event using the Connect client. I unfortunately don't have that capability right now to show that directly, but it's going to be in your Events tab. So if I click on this guy here, and it won't work because I can't actually create anything because it wants me to log in. But if I clicked on new event here, if this was synced, it's going to pop up a option to configure those settings on the right side, just like it would if I were to grab a new call or anything. So it will pop up the ability to name your conference, schedule it, invite people, and do everything you need from there. So it is going to work very, very much like the client on 14. Can toolbars be sent blind transfer like for an operator? So you can set up toolbars in the system here. So just to show you here, there is a little toolbar here. You can add buttons to the toolbar by clicking here. And these do have to be configured on the back end so that you can actually add the buttons. So you can't quickly create through the toolbar to create those blind transfers. They do have to be created on the back end and then added. But the easiest way is using this contacts tab here. If I have a call that's in the system here, I can actually transfer using this tab here as an operator so that I can actually drag and drop calls, which is going to make your life a little bit easier in terms of those transfers. Is there a transfer option to transfer a call internally? Yes. So that would be, like we were talking about before, you'll see where my mouse is hovering. That's going to be that phone with the arrow. That's going to be your transfer option. And when you click that, that's going to bring up a name and number field, just like before, if you were just trying to dial somebody. And you can type in an internal name or extension, or you can use an external number. So that box is multi-purpose. All right, and it looks like that is the last of the questions on the right side here. If anybody has any other questions, I'll wait for another minute or so here. Is there a speaker available? I'm not sure exactly how to answer your question. If you are assuming that you would be looking for a speaker, like an actual device to place on your desk, the best option for that would be an IP phone. The client does work with the IP phones, so you could use the speakerphone on the IP phone in conjunction with the Connect client to handle your calls. Any other questions? How long after a voicemail has been deleted do you have to recover it? So those deleted voicemails are going to be purged overnight. So if you were to delete it at noon, for example, you're basically going to have the rest of your working business day. If you decide at 4:55 and you're off at 5 that you need to get that voicemail back, you'd be able to. When you come back into the office the next day, that will be gone. So it's going to be basically during a cleanup cycle overnight. Typically happens around 1:30 to 2 in the morning. All right, and it looks like we are all good now. So if you have any other questions, what I would recommend is forward those over to your system administrator, or if you are the system administrator, shoot us an email, support@inflowcommunications.com. We're more than happy to help you out with any questions that you have. If you're interested in our support and services, feel free to let us know as well, and we'll get you in touch with somebody who would be able to get you acquainted with the team and see what your needs are and make sure that we can fit your business as well. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you for joining our webinar. And we will have another one on the 22nd. That one is going to be more admin oriented and will be for basic call flow best practices in the Connect system. I will be running that as well, about an hour in length. If you are interested in that, I look forward to seeing you there. Otherwise, you guys have a wonderful day. Great rest of the week, and we will talk to you soon. Thank you very much.